Hi, and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up, May marks the start of Mental Health Awareness Month. The National Alliance on Mental Illness NYC is one of several organizations making an effort to acknowledge this month. The CEO and the Director of Policy and Advocacy for NAMI-NYC join me to discuss the importance of prioritizing mental health. What are some of the signs someone may be struggling with their mental health? Then, Bronx organization Oyate Group plans to support Bronx businesses with a Shark Tank style competition with prizes of up to $50,000. The founder of Oyate Group and the president of Hoodspitality join me to discuss this effort. How will the competition support entrepreneurs of color? After that, organization Friends of Four Parks Alliance will host their annual BX Pets Day, highlighting the importance of pet wellness. The vice president of the organization will join me to discuss the event and ways we can make our parks family friendly. How did BX Pets Day begin? And finally, with a mission to uplift Bronx families, the organization BronxWorks continues its efforts to support those dealing with immigration. The Director of Legal Services for BronxWorks joined me to discuss the steps needed to ensure members of this community have what they need to succeed. Why are citizenship applications a challenge to overcome for so many immigrant families? So stay tuned, all this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hello, everyone. I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today is Tuesday, May 30th. You're now watching Open, a live program bringing the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet Across the country, organizations acknowledge May as Mental Health Awareness Month. The National Alliance on Mental Illness NYC is one of several organizations honoring the effort. Joining me to discuss mental health awareness is CEO Matt Kudish and Director of Policy and Advocacy Kimberly Blair. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Now, I want to jump in just talking about your organization as a whole. So, can you tell us a little bit more about it and the mission?
Yeah, our mission is to help families and individuals affected by mental illness build better lives through education, advocacy, and support. We offer peer-led programs, which means that the programs you're participating in are taught by people living with mental illness themselves, and just as importantly, by family members and friends of people living with mental illness who understand what you're going through because they're going through it as well.
I really like that you mentioned that. I've noticed that a lot more organizations are doing that. Because I think sometimes in certain situations like that, you could fear that maybe you're being judged. And I think it's so amazing that it's like a peer thing. So it kind of eliminates that fear. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, how does mental illness impact New Yorkers specifically?
So the statistic is that 1 in 5 of us is living with mental illness. I think that only tells part of the story. 1 in 5 of us is living with mental illness. The other 4 are our family members, our friends, our colleagues, our social networks, our neighbors. So we're all impacted by mental illness in one way or another. If left untreated, mental health issues can cause some serious problems for people. You might see challenges in relationships. You might see people becoming more isolated and experiencing more loneliness, which we know can lead to other serious health outcomes. You may have difficulty completing your education. You may have a hard time getting and keeping meaningful employment or housing. So the consequences of living with mental illness, especially untreated, can be pretty significant and just as impactful on family members. So very often we think about mental illness as the person living with it, but we have to remember the people around them who love them and want them to do well and have the best life possible. Mental illness can be so isolating for all of those people, the individual living with it and their family members and friends. So we want to make sure that people are connected to community so that they understand that they're not alone.
Now, I want to take a moment to just highlight the Bronx in particular. As many of us know, the Bronx is like the highest when it comes to like everything bad and the lowest when it comes to everything good, which is like kind of an unfortunate reality. Can you talk about how you've seen mental illness, affect members of the community in the Bronx?
Yeah, the Bronx actually has the highest level of inpatient psychiatry in the city. And I think when we think about access to mental health care, we know that there are fewer psychiatrists in the Bronx than in other boroughs, and significantly. We know through an access perspective, you have to, very often it's about insurance. And so if you have insurance, are you covered for mental health benefits? If you don't have insurance, are you able to afford out-of-pocket mental health care? And in each case, is there someone available right now who can help you when you are dealing with these issues, or do you have to wait for a really long time? I think another piece of the way that this issue affects the people in the Bronx specifically is when you are talking with a mental health professional or even peer programs like ours, you want to talk to someone who looks like you, who shares your experience in some way. You don't want to have to explain what it's like to be a Black person to a non-Black person who is there to help you. And I think the last thing I would say about the ways in which the Bronx is affected by mental health issues is unfortunately a much higher increase in dealing with the criminal legal system. So very often Black and brown individuals end up being shot and in many cases killed, unfortunately, by the police when they are not doing anything wrong other than having a mental health crisis. So it's really important that we start to address these disparities in the Bronx, but certainly across the city.
If
Now-
I may,
Yes, of course.
I also would like to just add that, as someone who used to live here for some time, what does that look like, right? What Matt is talking about, that lack of cultural competency and that lack of linguistically appropriate care. For me, it meant traveling up to an hour and 30 minutes on the train to Brooklyn, to the one provider that I had established a relationship with who really understood my culture, which is really such a shame because we have such a diverse population here, and we do have a lot of BIPOC representing providers, but the wait list is just so long, and especially to that point that Matt said, that affordable option. So sometimes I just like to always bring that personal experience because I think it's really important to show what it looks like.
Now, if you can you talk about, the top policy priorities and, what is going to be done just to help Bronx, people who are impacted by mental illness or worrying about their mental health?
Yeah, definitely. So we do a lot of work on the city and state level. We work with city council. We work with state legislators, such as your state assembly members and your state senators. And all of that is geared towards increasing access, making sure that everybody has access if they're underinsured or uninsured, right? We always talk about uninsured, but never underinsured. Sometimes some of our benefits don't include mental health services, right? Or out of network, which a lot of providers are here in New York City. In addition to access and making sure that we have initiatives with workforce development to really cultivate those BIPOC mental health professionals that we really need. We focus a lot on family support. It's the first time ever we're included in the City Council Mental Health Roadmap, and there is a commitment to fund family support services. So that means that family support and how to understand mental health, how to cope within the family unit and support a loved one who lives with mental illness. So we have a financial commitment from the City Council. Aside from that, we do a lot. We do a lot of criminalization of mental illness work. That's really important as we see a long wait time for people who have an established diagnosis, waiting in pretrial detention, sometimes at Rikers, sometimes in other local jails, and they're deteriorating while they're waiting, right? Because there is no diversion, there's no off-ramps. So we focus a lot on activism with the TNJ Act, that stands for the Treatment Not Jail Act. It's at the state level, but we do garner a lot of city support for that state legislation to push. We've been working diligently on what would it look like for the state to finance more mental health courts, more drug courts as diversions for people who have contact with the criminal legal system. And so aside from that, that's just one diversion, right? But there are a number of other things. We really focus on non-police response to mental health crises. We focus a lot on calling for a Be Heard oversight hearing because while it is a step in the right direction with Be Heard, and it's a first step towards a true non-police response, it's not currently in its current iteration working up to the community standards for non-police response. We still have the police responding up to 82% of the times, and they utilize 911 instead of 988, which is a 3-digit crisis line. So we work on all that, and then also supportive housing, making sure everybody has access to supportive housing for mental health conditions.
I wanted to touch on that because I noticed that I did a story a while back just about how, members of, people who are dealing with mental illness, sometimes the family members will call the police because they don't know, what to do. Are there any services or anything that you offer to help people also deal with that? Because I think a lot of people I think mental illness just in general isn't, we're not educated on it a lot. And so a lot of people could mean well, but, maybe they'll still call the cops because they don't know who else to turn to. Is there anything that you guys do to help people dealing with that?
Well, we're not born knowing how to, as you said, we're not born knowing how to navigate something as complicated and complex and sometimes off-putting as mental illness, both in ourselves or in someone that we care about. I think the 988 number that Kimberly mentioned is really important for people to understand. If you're not sure what to do and you need help, calling 911 will very, very likely bring a police response. We want to avoid that as much as possible. We want a mental health response for people who are having a mental health issue. And so 988, which was launched nationally last July, is a really great resource for people to call, to have EMTs and social workers come. We believe that there should be peers who are a part of that. We think that people with lived experience, both living with mental illness and family and friends of people living with mental illness, who are trained to support other people going through similar crises, can add a valuable component to de-escalating a situation and supporting all of the people who want that individual to be well. I don't know if you want to add anything.
So we always want to get the message out about 988 because the more people utilize it, the more we could also fix the little kinks that we're trying to fix at the national level. So something to note, if you are a New York City resident, you have a New York City area code, you dial 988, you will be transferred immediately to the call center, which is run by NYC Well. Okay. But if you have a non-New York City area code, we do ask people to use 188 NYC Well. That way they're still connected directly because as of now, they're using area codes to kind of connect you to your call center. And the great thing about NYC Well is when we're focusing on like bringing peers to the forefront, NYC Well has clinical specialists that pick up the phone as well as peer specialists. So if you call, they do that triage to make sure you're stable, right? That you're not suicidal. But after that, you can actually request for a peer specialist if that's not who already picked up the phone. So I think that's really important to know.
And I'm so glad that you shared that. I definitely learned a lot because this was not something that I even heard of before. So I'm so glad that you shared that so that people watching can know what to do. Now, can you just talk a little bit more about like how can New Yorkers get involved in advocacy work? If this is something that they're passionate about and they want to help out more, what can they do?
Yeah, this is my favorite part. So we have an advocacy ambassador program. It's all made up of people with lived experience in some way. So peers, either someone living with a mental health condition, family members. We have some friends as well who are doing this in honor of, like, let's say a loved one who died by suicide, right? And we have a smaller number of clinicians, but all of them also have some lived experience in some way firsthand, right? And so we train them and mobilize them to speak to their city legislators and their state legislators, and they have those one-on-one connections themselves, and they really lead the efforts in our policy areas. Additionally to this, we have advocacy town halls. We have one this Thursday online, so it's accessible to everyone in the Bronx, right? It's at 6:15. It's called Thriving Through Pregnancies. It's really talking about the intersections of reproductive psychiatry and policy. And we're going to have State Senator Samar Brook, Assemblymember Farris LaFront Forest, and some big reproductive psychiatrists on there talking and breaking this concept down. In July, we're going to have a BIPOC Mental Health Month event. So that's something to look forward to.
And it's so important because I think like mental health affects different communities, separately. And like, what one person is dealing with is going to look completely different from, someone of a different background. So I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, and really, if you want to get more involved, you can come to our website. On the advocacy page, there's an application, and as long as you live in one of the 5 boroughs, we do some screenings, but for the most part, that's really the main threshold. We really, all of our services are really no barriers to entry, and it's really important that we highlight that, not just the advocacy, but the peer support and family support services that we run.
I want to make sure everyone knows that all of our programs and services are available free of charge to anyone who needs them. We don't care about your immigration status, your insurance status, NAMI-NYC.org. There's no reason not to check us out if you're living with mental illness or if you care about somebody who lives with mental illness.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go away. We'll be back with more Open right after this.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
I know what you're thinking. I need a job.
Well, I've been there.
I've been there.
But you gotta keep going.
You just need the right skills. Find an apprenticeship.
I found a course online.
You can do this.
You will find something.
We'll find something new.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Welcome back. Inspired by the hit show Shark Tank, Bronx organization Oyate Group launches an entrepreneurship program. The program aims to alleviate poverty and empower underserved communities all across New York City. The founder of Oyate Group, Tomas Ramos, and president of Hoodspitality Group, Junior Martinez, now join me to discuss what this program means for up-and-coming businesses. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Now, can you first just talk about what inspired the creation of this entrepreneurship?
The Oyate Group, we are a community-based anti-poverty nonprofit. A lot of our work, we have done internship programming, mentorship programming. We've partnered with Junior Martinez and his hospitality group when the Twin Peaks fire happened, and we raised $100,000 for those families. And then throughout the years, Junior and our organization has partnered in giving turkeys to the community. And a couple years ago, Junior approached me and saying that he wanted to do something, more impactful, more sustainable than just giving turkeys out for one day, So then he mentioned how he wanted to do something around entrepreneurship and have long-term, sustainability and impact for entrepreneurs. And that's how, really started. That's what inspired me to do it. And when I reached out to Junior about this, he was on board, and here we are.
Okay. Now, can you talk a little bit more just about, why you really wanted to be a part of this and why you wanted to do it and what gave you the idea to kind of do something a little bit more?
Right. So throughout the years, doing so much community programs, doing so many community programs out here as book bag giveaways, turkey giveaways. We wanted to do something a little bit more, right? What's a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more long-term for people? How do we create more jobs, right? And how do we give an opportunity to those that have an idea but don't have the resources to bring it to life? And that's where we came up with that program of entrepreneurship. Let's see what our people have in mind, and let's bring our resources to help them bring that to life.
Now, I think what's so important is that it is, focused mainly in the Bronx, and especially for, entrepreneurs of color. Can you just talk about why that was so important for the both of you?
Historically, let's look at, it's hard for a lot of people of color to get loans from the banks, credit score, the financial literacy is not taught in schools. So a lot of our families and a lot of young people that are, going out in the workforce that want to become entrepreneurs is just difficult. They don't have access to capital. They don't have, families that are wealthy. They don't have a pipeline of wealthy donors that that are going to invest in their ideas. So that's why it's extremely important with this program that we're launching.
And I also want to add that sometimes I will see people online who have amazing ideas and they'll say it and then somebody else will just come by because they have the resources, and they can bring it to life. And it's just it's such a sad thing that that's a reality for so many people. Now, can you just talk a little bit more about the program in general and, what are the rules and what are the prizes that people can get?
Yeah. So I was the show Shark Tank. A lot of people are familiar with it, where entrepreneurs come. Some of them already started, so they have revenue, and then there's some that don't. So we are accepting both. So people that have already started, have some kind of revenue, have some kind of business plan, and we're also accepting applicants for people that just have a good idea. And we're going to judge it Shark Tank style and provide them not only with first prize, which is $50,000, second prize $25,000, and third prize $10,000. Not only we're going to provide them with the financial resources, but our other resources when it comes to our legal team to file the paperwork, our accounting team to making sure the books are in order, to our digital media team to create a website, all the other resources that we as Oyate Group has and Junior and his company has as well. So it's holistic, and we're also going to make sure that once they get up and running, we're going to follow up and follow them through.
Now, Junior, what are some of the businesses you're looking forward to seeing? I can say as somebody I always think that I have a great idea for a business, and some people are like, not so much. So what are you looking forward to seeing, and how do you know if a business has the it factor to actually succeed?
Right. So for me and bringing my experience, I have opened up 7 locations here in the Bronx and others throughout the city, from restaurants to cigar lounges to real estate companies on that side. So I really get excited when not just we want to see everything. We want to see high-tech business. We want to see ideas of businesses that are already running, but are innovating to cater to this new generation, to the new times that we're in. We also want to look for a single mom that wants to open up a nail tech salon, right, or a hair salon, because ultimately what we really believe is that one of the ways that we fight poverty is by creating jobs. And what better way than to empower someone from our community to create jobs to hire within the community, right? And start that cycle. So that's what we're looking for.
Right. And the fact that you said cycle is so important because a lot of the times maybe we'll have people from other communities that come into our communities and make businesses, but that money doesn't stay and circulate within the community. So I think it's so important that you mentioned that, even if it's something and I'm glad that you mentioned that, even like a nail salon. I think a lot of people sometimes maybe will say, oh, we don't need another nail salon, or, because you don't think of an idea that has something to do with tech, it's not good enough. I think it's so great that you mentioned that. Now, can you just talk a little bit about, the fact that in addition to funds, people will also receive other resources and education, which I think is so important. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So like I said, the experience of opening up, going through the journey of opening up a small business or a startup company, there's a lot of pieces that have to come together, right? Going from your initial corporation setup, your partnership agreements, finalizing contracts with vendors, your marketing strategy, social media management. So people don't understand sometimes that small business owners aren't really working 7-8 departments, just one person, right? And that's where the struggle comes in order for you to be able to scale your business. And that's where we want to come in and bring our resources with our legal team, our accountants, to not just give the winning individuals the money, but to also be able to provide them with training when it comes to how to run a business, how to keep your books in order, how to stay in compliance with city ordinance and city laws. And that's what we're looking for.
Now, can you explain, just what are the overall requirements to joining and to making sure that you can kind of stay through the program?
Our application is on our website, oyategroup.org. It's a very simple application. We're just asking for a general idea. We're not asking for a comprehensive business plan because we know that there's people that don't know how to create a business plan, but we also know there's people that have amazing ideas. So we're not limiting anybody to apply. So we encourage everyone that has a good idea to please go to our website, oyategroup.org. Look at the application. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and put in the application.
Now, I think the amazing thing about this program is that the winners also have an opportunity to give back. Why was that so important for the both of you?
You know, when we look at everything we do is intentional, long-term sustainability. We want to continue running this program every year. And next year, hopefully, we can increase it to $100,000. So it's important that we take equity in the business so we can continue funding this program for years to come. And also for just accountability as well. So we're going to be and to let them know we're going to be with you guys forever. You know, if you're successful, we're successful. So I think, taking equity kind of just holds all of us accountable. Like, all right, we're not just going to give you the money and you run off and do your thing. No, we're here to make sure that your business is successful, and we're going to do everything possible to ensure that happens.
And can you explain why that was important for you as well?
Yeah, it's like I mentioned before, it creates a cycle, right? A cycle of giving, a cycle. Let's help you today so that you're able to help those that come after you. And I believe that there are other communities that do it very well. Why can't we? And that's what we want to bring into the Bronx, Uptown, Harlem, and be able to set our people up with that mentality of, hey, you know what? We're stronger together. Let us help you with our resources so that you can help that next person after you.
And then one last thing really quickly, if you had any advice for somebody who's thinking about joining, what would you say?
Go into the website, oyategroup.org, fill out that application. That it's only 5 minutes. Don't be hesitant. It doesn't matter what the idea is. We're not here looking for scientific projects. We're here looking for something that's going to be effective in our neighborhood, something that it's going to create jobs for our community. And that's don't worry about it. Just fill out the application, submit it, and we'll look at it.
All right. Well, I want to thank you both so much for joining us.
Thanks for
Thank you for having us.
Stay tuned. We have more Open for You right after this.
Is it time yet?
It's time.
Come start time for dinner.
Oh, terrific.
Donating pet food is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
COVID-19 has changed how we spend weekends with the girls. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to brunching instead of late-night munching. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts. As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions.
Should I get it?
Is it safe? Should I wait?
It's okay to have questions. Now get the facts at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
My character, Shazam, knows all about growing up in a family full of teenage superheroes. They're bold.
Where's everyone going?
To fight crime?
Okay.
Adventurous. Shazam! There's never a dull moment. And no matter what happens, they'll always have your back. All they need is a place to grow and be themselves. And the best part is, you don't have to be a superhero to adopt a teen. Learn more about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward.
Welcome back. Animal lovers and their pets are in for a real treat as the organization Friends of Four hosts their annual BX Pets Day. The event promises to offer pet wellness information, a low-cost vet clinic, and so much more. Joining me now to discuss their event is the Vice President of the Friends of Four Parks Alliance, Nisha Tabassum. Nisha, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, can you first just tell us a little bit more about the organization Friends of Four?
Yes, of course. So Friends of Four Parks Alliance is a really small organization that was founded by community-minded residents in 2016 with the goal of engaging in the 4 parks of the Lower Grand Concourse. So that's Franz Siegel, Joyce Kilmer, McCombs Dam, and Wendell T. Foster. The organization has grown in both the volunteers and people who engage with it, as well as the kind of events we put on, where it went from regular park cleanups have evolved into more bigger events like Pets Day, for example. Some of our events bring out over more than 500 people. And the beauty of it is it's completely volunteer run. The board members, the people who put these events on, we actually have a tagline for the community by the community.
Oh, that's so sweet. Now, I'm really interested in learning more about BX Pets Day because this is the first time that I've heard something like that. First of all, just happening in the Bronx, which is so amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about that day in general?
Yeah, so just like it sounds, Bronx Pets Day, it's a day devoted to families and their pets. It promotes pet wellness. It gives exposure to local businesses who provide pet services. And most importantly, it's an opportunity for people to engage in the parks with their pets, which is one of our main priorities.
And then how did the event actually begin? Like, what inspired the creation of this event?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So our board president, Reynaldo, he usually hosts a community forum every year where we solicit ideas from neighbors about the kind of events they want to see in the 4 parks that they live next to. So, Friends of 4 Parks is sometimes a conduit for people to propose ideas and help lead it. We have a 501c3 status, so there's a lot of things we can do to help organize and run events. And so a year ago, actually, my friend and neighbor Silvana, who's a cat mom, proposed the idea of Pets Day. She recognized the value of having pets, as family members and wanted to bring that to our local parks. And so that's how it got started. We organized a group of people to come together. We put it on, and it was wildly successful. Over almost 250 people attended. We had dozens of pet vendors and businesses, and we had over, I think, 25 volunteers from in the Bronx, outside of the Bronx, come and help put it together. And we've had people ask if we can do it again, and here we are.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's always a great thing. Like, if you put something on and people are like, when's the next one? It means you're really connected with the community. So that's amazing. Now, I know that the day, just in general, will promote pet health, education, and so much more. Can you just expand on what attendees will learn more about?
Yeah, as of now, we have over 23 vendors who's coming to Pets Day. There are multiple of services from pet grooming, there's vaccine drives, there's dog licensing, pet waste management. We'll have other vendors selling merchandise and jewelry, for example. There'll be a dog competition, and there'll be a campaign encouraging people to pick up after their pets when they're in the park. I think the most important thing is that they get to engage with their pets and get exposure to these businesses.
Now, I wanted to touch on animal licensing. I'm not a pet owner, so this is pretty new to me, but I think a lot of people, like if you walk the streets, or you may have a friend, who has some animals, or maybe their cat had kittens. Can you just talk about the importance of making sure that if you do get a pet, that there needs to be animal licensing involved?
Yeah, so, there are a lot of great benefits to getting your pet's license. For example, if you lose your pet, it helps to identify your pet. When you're with your dog and you have your dog off leash, there's the security of knowing that your dog is licensed. I've also heard that it simplifies medical appointments if there's a record of their pets in the system. It's facilitated by the New York City Department of Health. They have a dog licensing bureau. You can actually get your application started at our event, but normally you can apply online for a modest fee, and I think the license is valid for a couple of years.
Okay. Now, I also wanted to touch on just about pet health and education. Yeah. So sometimes I'll scroll online and I'll see some really cool things and I'll share it with people. Even though I don't have pets, I'm like, you should know this. One thing I learned is that when it's really hot outside, your pet's paws could be very sensitive. What are some other things that a lot of pet owners may not know, but that they should know just about, taking care of their animal in general?
As it relates to the park, I think being mindful of where you walk your dogs, one of our biggest value is that we promote cleaning up after the parks. So that way it's safe for humans and it's safe for pets. And so making sure to assess the area that you're in and there's not any needles. That is a big problem in some of the parks that we have, that there's not broken glass. And, we've heard stories where dogs have stepped on broken glass and they've ended up in the vet with like a massive bill.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that. So thank you so much for sharing. Now,
Mhm.
I wanted to kind of expand on that. How does the support of animals just aid in your overall work towards keeping our parks clean and family friendly?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, Friends of Four Parks, we host a variety of different events. And the idea is to have these events in the parks so people can see the potential of what the parks offer, as well as engage with it with care. And so, Pets Day is just one event out of many that we organize. And it's a really fun event. We live in a neighborhood that has a lot of pets. I've met a lot of friends that way. We were just walking our dogs. And I think it's a great way to bring all of our neighbors together and celebrate something that we all have in common.
Now, what can pet owners do to ensure that they're doing their part just to make sure that our parks are safe, clean, and just family friendly overall?
Yeah, like I mentioned, really cleaning up after your pet. There's been instances when I've stepped on dog poop. I know other people who stepped on dog poop. Really doing your part to keep the parks clean. And it's not just pet owners, it's people in general. There's a lot of litter, and we host park cleanups often, get the neighbors involved to clean up our parks. If you see broken glass or don't put glass in an area where there's potential for an accident, and really engage in taking care of the parks. Bronx is the greenest borough. I think we are very proud of that. 24% of the Bronx is covered with parkland, actually, more than the other boroughs. And we get the least amount of services. And so, it's really important for our neighbors to also get involved in keeping our parks clean.
Now, I'm really glad that you mentioned that because I did want to talk a little bit more just about parks in general. And you mentioned litter, which I understand is like a huge problem just for New York City overall, but definitely could feel like a bigger problem in the Bronx. Can you just talk about some of the efforts your organization does to just get people to be more aware about that?
Yeah, we host park cleanups often in the 4 parks that we represent. And so that's one way to bring people out. For this event in particular, last year we had a specific campaign, pick up your poop, dog poop. So that's one way. We've tried out different events. We've had plogging events where you run and you pick up trash, not just the parks, but on the streets. And so I think getting people to engage in the parks and seeing the value that the parks brings them makes them more excited to take care of them too.
And I'm glad that you mentioned the value of parks. We see that so many people now that it's getting summer, nicer, and we're inching towards summer. More people are going to be utilizing their parks. So clearly there is value in there. What else can people do just to let the city know and just to let other community members know that this is our space and we want to keep it clean, and this is something that we value a lot?
It's as simple as bringing trash bags with you or a bag with you where you put your trash in your bag instead of throwing it out. I think one other thing people can do is lobby their local council members to put in more trash cans, for example, or state senators or assembly members. We did that for one of the parks and we got an increased amount of trash cans, and that was actually really helpful. And I think another thing is get to know the people who clean up your parks, like the agency staff. They do really hard and valuable work. Engage with them and talk to your neighbors about keeping your parks clean. Sometimes the domino effect, when you see more trash just ends up becoming the case. But when you see more people actively doing their part in keeping the park clean, it reinforces a mindset that, oh, maybe I should do the same.
Right. And I think that I know that a lot of organizations just around the Bronx have been doing things to beautify the area, because when you see that the place you live is clean and beautiful, you kind of want to treat it with a little bit more respect. So I'm so glad to hear that's just part of the work that you guys are doing just to make sure that people are keeping the area clean. Now, I also wanted to mention just Bronx businesses because the BX Pets Day is also going to highlight some Bronx businesses. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we have over 23 vendors and businesses coming through. A lot of them are local businesses and they're people of color. And I think for us, it was really important to highlight the local services that exist in our neighborhood. It's so rich with so many different initiatives and ventures. And we wanted people to have exposure to that. And I think it's important to invest in local businesses, especially if they're run by people of color. We don't charge a vendor fee. We just want people to come offer their services, and in return, our residents get exposure and they have a great time.
And I also think that this is new for me. I didn't even know the Bronx had like pet businesses or businesses that specialize, in animal care. Can you tell us just about a few of the businesses? Because I think most people just think, these large corporations when it comes to pet care, but there's so many local things. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
I can give you like a couple of the vendors that will be there. There will be a vendor who sells human ice cream, but as well as like dog ice cream. It's called Playa Gelato. They're actually located in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx. There is one organization called Where to Pet Dispatch, where they actually provide pet transportation services, which is really cool. There's a couple of other organizations like Gatos, where they sell jewelry for humans, and the proceeds go towards cat rescue organizations. Oh my God, we have so many. And then we have a couple of veterinary hospitals. Like we have Bronx Veterinary Center who will be coming through to talk about the services that they offer. It runs the gamut. I can give you a whole list.
Well, I think that's amazing, and I'm just so glad to hear that. And some of them sound like really trendy, which is like cool that we have like cool trendy things here in the Bronx.
Yeah, one of the vendors actually can make custom bandanas for your pets on the spot, which is really cool.
Sweet. Oh, that's cool. That sounds exciting already. Now, what can people do if they're interested in volunteering? Are there any volunteer opportunities?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, we're 100% volunteer run, from the board members to the people who put these events on. So we're always looking for volunteers. It actually what makes our organization really special. And so if people go to our website, friendsof4.org, it's the number 4, get on our mailing list, and we'll have tons of opportunities coming to your inbox very soon. We have a couple of other events that are coming up in the fall.
And can you just talk a little bit about some of those events?
Yeah, of course. So, we have some standing programs, and then we have some special programs. We have a Yoga in the Park series on Saturdays at 9 a.m. at France Siegel Park. It's free and accessible to everyone. We have a musical program for kids at Joyce Kilmer. And then aside from that, we have an annual 5K, which is a run through all of the 4 parks that's going to be happening in the fall. And then we have our signature Halloween event, which started off really small, but has grown to over like 500, 600 people attending. And that's going to be in October.
That's amazing. All these things sound so awesome. Like, I guess just from your standpoint, what do you like most just being a part of this type of community?
I think like the South Bronx is probably one of the best places I've lived. And it's because I got involved with this organization, just volunteering during my free time. And I got to meet so many like-minded neighbors who have become really dear friends.
That's amazing. And I'm glad that you said that, because I think the Bronx sometimes gets a negative reputation. But there's just like so many gems and like so many amazing things that you can find in the community. And so I think it's like amazing that you mentioned that. So
yeah, and I think it's important to show like, hey, we have nice things in the Bronx. You don't have to go into the city or to Brooklyn to find things. Like we can make our borough just as enriching and beautiful through the events that we put on.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me and having this conversation.
Thank you so much.
We have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more Open right after this.
Kids!
I don't want to talk about it.
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 Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency.
Kids, you all right?
This family's prepared. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan. Go to nyc.gov/readyny or call 311 for more information.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Can you see anything different as a pill?
No.
You don't know?
Fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. There's only one thing that will save somebody's life. That is naloxone nasal spray.
Fentanyl, it's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
Why would drug dealers put a lethal dose of fentanyl in drugs if they know it's so harmful?
Really just all about the money.
I just didn't realize that one pill could change your whole life.
More kids should know.
Welcome back. Striving to help immigrant families in NYC, organization BronxWorks offers services meant to meet the needs of this vulnerable population. Assisting this community is just one part of BronxWorks' effort to help individuals and families improve their economic and social well-being. Joining me to discuss their efforts to support immigrant families is Director of Legal Services, Arturo Lopez. Arturo, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Now, can you talk a little bit more about your overall, mission with BronxWorks?
Sure. So BronxWorks is a non-for-profit. It's been in the Bronx for over 40 years, providing a variety of services. I am in the legal department, and we provide legal representation for free to the community. One of the largest services we provide to the community is our immigration services. As you know, the Bronx is a very immigrant-heavy community, and we can assist with immigration applications, general consultations, information, and other issues like that the community may be facing.
Now, working with so many different types of families, what are some of the unique challenges that face families who are dealing with immigration?
I would say the complexity of the process and the system. It's very hard to understand. There's a lot of need, and so there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so people sometimes don't necessarily understand the process, what needs to be done, and can sometimes be taken advantage of by people who are not licensed to practice law and hold themselves out as knowledgeable and authorized to assist with the immigration process. And that's why I always advise people to seek out nonprofits that can provide free, legitimate representation, high quality representation to these families.
Now that you mentioned that, what are some things that, people who are looking for this help should look for, just to make sure that the people that they're getting help from are legit and are not trying to, like you mentioned, feed them misinformation?
Right. Well, first, they should be looking for an actual attorney and not a notario or accounting service. And again, if the charges for the services or extremely high, or if they actually even make this process seem oversimplified. It's just a simple thing. It's not going to cost much. They may not be properly explaining the process. They may not be competent. They may just be looking to sort of reel you in, and then after there's a problem, start to charge more and take advantage of the person.
Now, can you explain? I'm not sure if I'm overestimating or underestimating, but can you just explain what the general process is like? So, is it something that you do online? Do you get a piece of paper? How does that work, and what does that process look like?
Sure. So there are a lot of different applications and forms and processes. It all really depends on what you want to do. So, when that question is sort of hard to answer in the sense that any particular process or anything you want to do is going to have its own process. So, but in a very general sense, the forms are available for free online. There should be no charge just to provide you the forms. The applications are prepared, the supporting evidence is collected, and everything is packaged and sent to USCIS. Now, we will assist with all those aspects, and all those services are free. And then the application would be sent to USCIS, and so again, we can help you for free with that process or processes, whichever one is you need help with.
Now, I understand that your organization also assists with the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, also known as DACA applications. Can you explain what that is and what those applications help with?
Sure. So that's one of the many applications we assist with. And that process was one that started for individuals that arrived as children to the United States, who had been arrived in the U.S. before the age of 16 and had been here for a certain number of years before the process was first started. It's still ongoing. And if you qualify, you can receive work authorization to remain and work in the United States.
Now, I think it's so important that, there's a focus on children as well as adults and just families in general. Can you just explain why it was important for the organization to focus on so many different aspects or, just areas of this vulnerable population?
Sure. I mean, as I said, the Bronx community has a very high number of immigrants, and the vast majority of those are families. So you can have one family, and all the members of the family may have different needs or qualify for different processes. And so it's important to be able to provide services to each one individually, understand the process, understand the law, understand what needs to be done, explain it to the client, their individual case, what law applies to them individually, and help them through that process.
And thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that sometimes we, just the way it's presented in mainstream media, you think of it as just like one unit and one application is going to fit for everybody, but that's not the reality. So I appreciate you, just talking about that. Now, can you talk about the efforts like the English for speakers of other languages classes and what those are?
So sure, BronxWorks also has a ESL program that's open to the community and helps the students learn English, be more competent in English, and this in turn can also help them with not only their careers but also in relation to immigration. If they are applying for citizenship, it can help them with that process because there is an English competency requirement to the process, a test which applicants do have to take.
Now, I want to mention that last year, our city saw an increase of migrants from Venezuela seeking shelter and asylum. Can you just talk about some of the ways that your organization was able to assist, this community?
Sure. So just as with anyone else, if you contact our office and schedule an appointment, we are happy to meet with you and provide information on immigration in general, analyze your case and determine what you may or may not qualify for, and explain the process and the laws that apply to you. So in general, our doors were open to these new arrivals as well. And in addition, we worked with a lot of other BronxWorks programs that were working to provide services to these families that arrived. Our shelter programs, our meals programs, to try to provide holistic assistance to these new arrivals.
Now, I also want to mention, since working so closely with this community, recently, the mayor is looking to house migrants in 20 standalone school gyms. As I mentioned, working closely with this community, can you just tell me your thoughts on that? Is this the best process for this community? Is this what they need? Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Right. So the majority of people coming to New York that I've encountered, and definitely my general knowledge, are families with young children. And I think we need to really look at that and try to put forth an effort to assist and house in a humane manner. Housing in a sort of a large room kind of structure may not necessarily be the best for these families. So I really think we need to try to find just better solutions to help these families.
Now, for anybody who feels exactly how you do, what are some ways that they can support BronxWorks' mission to, just help and assist these vulnerable communities?
I mean, we are a nonprofit. If anyone's would like to donate to our organization, they can feel free to do so. If you'd like to help more hands-on, we do have volunteer applications that you can prepare on our website, so people can feel free to volunteer on those. in my my department obviously is the legal department, so it's made up of attorneys. So if there are any experienced attorneys out there who are seeking to donate some of their time and expertise in the legal field, they would be welcome to do so as well.
And can you also talk about the BronxWorks Emergency Fund and what that's all about?
There was a fund set up to assist the community on these emergencies do arise, and so again, that's information that would be on our website, and you can seek information about that program and the application process. I wouldn't oversee the applications, but I know we have very competent staff who's always dedicated to helping the community. So if they receive your application, I know that they will look at it very closely.
Now, I want to take a moment, we have a little bit of time left, just to talk about some of the other work BronxWorks does. Can you just give us an overview of some of the other work you do?
Sure. So in addition to our immigration program, we do have some other legal programs that are closely linked to immigration. We find that there's a lot of overlap in the need in the community. We do have a crime victims program, which assists individuals who have been the victim of a crime, can assist with the legal issues arising out of that. Attorneys can help. Some of the most common things we help with are orders of protection, issues with identity theft, or benefits issues that may arise in connection usually to the identity theft, tax issues that are related to identity theft. So anything where a person was the victim of a crime. And then we also have a program which specializes in working with domestic violence survivors, which is a crime in itself,
right.
But it specializes in that. And we find that many of our clients are immigrants and are often scared to report because of their status or lack of status. And so our programs can all work together to provide services and analyze the case as a whole, from the need that may arise from the criminal victimization or the domestic violence to also analyzing the immigration need.
Can you just let everybody know really quickly where they can go to utilize these resources?
Sure. Our website is basically the best place to start, BronxWorks.org, and you'll find all of the agency's programs listed on there, but you'll see a tab for the legal services, and you can find all the legal services listed on there.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recable cast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.